I'm Dr. Amy Johnson. I'm a life coach and psychologist, and I'm going to talk about finding clarity in the middle of confusion. So, this topic is one that I think applies to everyone at various points in our life because we all get confused. We all overthink things. We all feel really stuck and just have these periods of not knowing what to do in life. And that's human. That's part of human nature. And yet, from in my own experience, and most people I've talked with about this, it's really uncomfortable. No one likes that. Like we really like to know. Not only know in the sense of having certainty and seeing what's coming and all of that, but we just it just feels good to feel clear. It feels good to kind of have a path and sort of know what we're doing and have some idea, even when we can acknowledge the fact that we never know what's coming. We're always, just by nature, we're always in a state of confusion. Not confusion so much as uncertainty. That is just the human existence is full of uncertainty. We never know. We still like to just kind of hold on to this little feeling that we sort of do and that we at least have something we could bet on. Whether we're right or not is another question, another story. But we like to kind of feel like we know. So it's interesting. We kind of have this paradox that all humans fall into. We get stuck, we get confused, and we don't know what's coming, and we really don't like that feeling. So what I want to talk about is just that state, and what we do when we're in it, and how, ironically, it is sort of um, surrendering to the confusion and seeing it in a different way that helps us kind of bounce our way back into clarity that much faster and sooner. And yet it's not a quest to always be clear because that's subhuman. That's not going to happen. But it's more about, I think, being clear and being on purpose as much as we possibly can be, but also at the same time being really graceful with our confusion and just having a sense of, just being okay in that place, knowing that it's temporary, knowing that it's not a problem and that it's self-correcting. So this is one of the big uh, messages in all of this that we'll talk about throughout this class is that confusion is not a problem. It can feel like a problem. Certainly when we're in it, it looks like a problem. And sometimes even afterwards, when we look back, it looked like, oh, I didn't know what to do. That was a big deal. But it's not a problem. It's only an indication that we have a lot on our mind and we have a lot of competing stuff on our mind. And thinking about what's on our mind sort of is weather. It's like, okay, there's a lot of messy weather outside. It's just a state we're in. But the beautiful thing is it's a temporary state. And to start this off, I mean, I just want you to kind of consider this idea that maybe confusion is not only not a problem, but it's also 100% self-correcting. So it truly is like weather, in that you're going to get all kinds of stuff. You're going to find yourself in what you might call stuckness or confusion. But it's also going to clear up because if you think about it, look back at your life, I bet you would. I bet every time you can think of, it has cleared up, at least to some degree. Like, I don't know anyone who's lived, any significant amount of time in a serious state of confusion. I mean, we're talking like years, decades. Like, it doesn't happen. You either stop thinking about the thing that you're confused about, you get over it, you just, your thoughts go somewhere else, or you do get some clarity on that issue when you see something that you couldn't see before. So it truly is a self-correcting state that when we're in the middle of it doesn't look self-correcting. So remembering that, can be a huge asset to us in helping us through this. So the first kind of fundamental big idea when it comes to finding our way through clarity or through confusion and feeling more clarity is that clarity is always there. It's just that we don't always experience it. This for me was a really huge just shift in thinking about things because I used to think, that I don't know, I wasn't sure what my nature was, like what was underneath it. It was like, all right, sometimes I'm really confused. Sometimes I'm really clear. You kind of get a little bit of everything. And that is the human experience, but kind of focusing on that human experience that's like sometimes things go great, sometimes they go horribly, and it kind of leaves you in this place where you're like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to make of anything. It almost just feels like this huge crapshoot, where circumstances line up, you get good stuff, you feel good, or they don't line up, then you feel horrible, and you're just like kind of out there like this victim in life. And to start to see, for me, again, this shift was like starting to see this idea deeper and deeper, this truth about human beings, that there's something within us that is clarity. I think it is what we are. We are a calm, peace of mind, clear place. And yet we experience weather because we're human beings. We experience all this stuff that doesn't always feel like clarity. But just knowing that it's always there, it always has been, and it can't be taken away. Again, it kind of talks to the self-correcting nature of things, because if it's something's nature, if your nature is clarity, there's going to be so much energy and momentum and just natural force that's going to be kind of getting you back to your nature, like that energy is just there taking you back to that. Now, if that's not your nature, or you don't believe that's your nature, then you kind of miss it, then it's very scary to be confused. But when no, you know what, my nature is knowing what to do, or having some idea, or at least knowing a next step. And right now, maybe I can't see that. Right now, maybe I'm kind of removed from it, but I know it's still there because it can't go anywhere. It can't not be. There's so much comfort in that. And it really helps those moments of being really confused. It just helps you take them in stride and just be a little more patient, I think, and not step in and try to fix things, which is what, a lot of humans are kind of taught to do or conditioned to do, which only makes things worse. It kind of gives you a sense of ease and lets you say, okay, I know there's clarity in there somewhere. I'm just not seeing it. So the second big idea is that confusion, which is really just thought. It's like that, it's that surface weather, that surface thought. It does clear on its own. And we don't really have to make that happen. And in fact, the more we try, the more we muck it up. So don't even try. It will clear on its own. It's no different than you going outside and trying to fix the rainy day. It ain't gonna happen. So just go in and, watch a good movie and wait for the rain to pass, and it will. And you have a much better time doing that. And you're less wrapped up in it. And so for thought, it's much the same. Anytime we're confused, it's an instant signal that we're in our heads. We're just experiencing a bunch of thought, because again, if your nature is clarity, if that's what you are, when you don't have a lot of this weather stuff on your mind, then when you have a lot of that stuff on your mind, okay, I'm just lost in thought. I'm overthinking things. I'm looking at kind of a brick wall. It looks to me like a brick wall, but there's more there. I just can't see it right now. And there's something just so forgiving in that, and so much freedom in that. It's like, all right, I know this is not reality, but it's just all I can see in the moment, but I know there's more than this. And it allows you to just wait and let that storm sort of pass. So confusion, again, this kind of ties into what we said in the very beginning. It is a temporary state, and all it is thought. It's not a statement about your circumstances. You're really confused. You don't know what you're going to do next. It doesn't mean your life's in shambles. It doesn't mean you have very limited options. It doesn't necessarily mean any of that. All it means, what I take it as in the moment when you're feeling really confused, is that you're not seeing clearly. You just have a lot on your mind. So wait, because the storm's going to pass. The weather's going to change, and when it does, there's going to be some clarity underneath that. So the third big idea that I think is so helpful to know is that new thought is always on the way. There's always new thought coming on the pike. So I think of our human experience as a river, and this water's flowing all the time, and so whatever's flowing down the river is just what we're getting. We're getting happiness, clarity, confusion, unhappiness, depression, all of this stuff, and it's always flows. And I know that our experience doesn't always feel like it's always flows. It feels like we have a lot of log jams, and we do experience those at times. But the fundamental nature of our experience is that it's being refreshed and renewed all the time. And along with that, we're getting new thought. And the more, for me, when I first heard that and kind of got familiar with these ideas, I really argued with this one, because it felt like Like I could see it in theory, but then when I looked, I was like, I feel like I have the same thoughts every day for the most part, and it doesn't feel like I get these great, wonderful new ideas and new solutions all the time. I mostly just feel stuck in the same stuff. And that was my experience of it. But again, it was really tied in with kind of what I believed about it. I didn't really see what we're talking about here, that new thought is always coming. And what I found is the more you know that that's the case and you see it, you look for it, the more you're going to see it, and the more it's going to show up. And just, it's so humbling to just think about how we get ideas. So as you're watching this, think about some clarity you've gotten. Maybe you were confused about something and then you just finally saw a way through it, or you were really stuck on some problem and you found some innovative solution, or you had some new creative thought. Did you do that? I mean, like, I didn't do it for me. We don't really do it. We definitely have this sense of playing our part. It's not to say that you don't play a part. So certainly intellect and conversations we have and what we know and studying things and all of that definitely comes in. But it's like that moment when you have the insight, that moment when a new thought occurs to you. That kind of just happens within us. It's like a little miracle every time it happens. And I'm not only talking about big, huge, exciting thoughts, but even just little things like, oh, it's 1 o'clock. I haven't eaten lunch yet. Like, where did that come from? We don't make this stuff happen. It's kind of like our heart just beats and our breath just breathes, and new thoughts appear in our heads for us. And it's really a really awesome miracle. And so I think the more that we look toward that and just know that that's the case, when we're feeling confused and stuck, it's really hopeful. There's something in there that's like, okay, I've never not had a new thought. Like, a new thought has always propelled me to the next point in my life. I've never only had the same thoughts over and over again. So why would this be any different? And it's almost like the more pressure we put on ourselves, as if we're the ones who have to generate these thoughts, and we're the ones who have to get ourselves out of these places of stuckness. We just kind of like clamp down on the whole thing, and that river doesn't flow as readily. But that's us innocently doing it because we're scared and confused, and we don't know that it's self-correcting, and that new thought is always on the way. So just remember, like, fresh new thought is always coming. And when there are all kinds of people study innovation and creativity and talk to inventors and CEOs and entrepreneurs and all of these people who are really successful in those ways, and they all say they get these ideas when they're in the shower, on vacation, or driving to work. So it's not to say go take more showers and have a longer commute. It's because new ideas just appear, and we don't make them happen. And in fact, it's when your logical, intellectual mind kind of settles down, there's room for creativity and new thought to show up. So it's almost like the easier you can be within your confusion, knowing that it's going to end, knowing it's temporary, it helps you be really easy within it. And then what do you know? You get a new thought, and it's over before you know it. Big idea number 4 is about this idea that our internal slate clears. So this is similar to what I mentioned about thought, in that thought, we can get ourselves caught up in a whole mess of confusion and mental pain, and yet sometimes it lasts for much longer than we'd like, weeks, months even sometimes. But it always changes. It always breaks up and kind of passes, and to some degree. We're never stuck with one thought over and over and over. And knowing that our internal slate is sort of designed to clear, this is part of the self-correcting mechanism. Whenever we're in all that confusion, our slate is wanting to clear. Now, sometimes, especially when we don't know that, and especially when we're trying to solve our own problems and figure everything out ourselves, we get in there and we kind of prevent the clearing. But the more, again, we can kind of just relax and let this happen, you can rest assured that in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just for little brief moments, your slate's going to start clearing, and you're just not going to be stuck in this confusion forever. So seeing it as really temporary, and knowing that there is some clarity underneath it that you're going to be kind of returned to when the slate clears, is really, really a big relief. So it's not that your slate clears and then you're just blank. I mean, that could be a good thing, or you could see that as terrifying. It's that when your slate clears, you have a nature, and that nature is clarity. That nature is sort of knowing what to do or having some ideas. So again, it's, sometimes people get really scared about that. Well, what do you mean the slate clears? Like, I don't want to just be empty, or I don't want to have no opinions or no direction. It's not that at all. It's that what clears is our conditioning and kind of our programmed, very human stuff. And what's underneath that is something that is more stable and has that clarity and that peace that we're looking for. Big idea number 5. I love this one. It's so simple and it reminds me of being a kid. So it's when you're feeling confident, when you're feeling good, you're warmer. Remember that game Warm or Colder that we used to play? So you'd hide something or whatever, or you'd give a clue and then somebody would be guessing or looking for what you hid, and you'd say, you're warmer, now you're colder. Well, it's kind of like playing Warm or Colder with our own emotions, our own kind of internal, emotional compass or guidance system that we all have. And so I mentioned earlier that when we're confused, what that actually means is we just have a lot of thinking. We have a lot of thought in our head, and it probably a lot of it is competing, and it's all kind of jumbled around in there. And that there's a feeling to that, as I'm sure you all know. When you've ever been confused, you're stuck. I mean, it's kind of like your head hurts. You feel your head being very full. There's a real sense of that. And then when you're clear, it's a wonderful feeling of kind of all of that just clearing out a little bit, and you almost feel, more empty and like a clear vessel. I think that's kind of what it means. Like you're kind of like a clear vessel for wisdom and something bigger to almost come through you. And so sometimes when we're confused, or we have a lot on our minds, it gets really tough to sort of know what to trust and what not to trust. And that's when the warmer, colder game comes in. So when you're feeling, you can use your feelings just as a gauge to kind of how much is on your mind, or how close you are, how on the right path you are to some kind of clarity. When you're feeling that feeling of like a lot on your mind, a lot of thought, you're feeling anxiety, tension, any of the emotions that come along with feeling really confused and stuck, that is your sign. That is your 100% accurate all the time sign that you are in your head, that you are not really living in the world, in the moment right then, which is fine. No, we don't all the time. It's not a problem. But you're living like in your head. You're thinking about things too much, and that's the place that you're really operating from. And that is a place where there tends to be a lot of confusion, because that's just your very very human, very innocently skewed personal thinking. So the feeling will always let you know. Now, when you're feeling kind of good, you're feeling clear, especially that feeling that people say is sort of like home base. Like you just kind of feeling comfortable within yourself, like you're kind of, like you're home. Then you're onto something. So from that place, you probably just naturally are going to have less confusion and you're going to be more clear. But if you're batting around things and you're not sure what to trust and what not to trust, if it's associated with that good, clear, home kind of feeling, you can trust it. You just can trust it, because that means there's less in your head. What you're feeling is more guided by something that's much bigger than you and is not really human, and so it's a little more trustworthy in that moment. Kind of using the fun warmer, colder game with yourself a little bit, just in like the tension in your body and your emotions and stuff. And you can see, and the only thing again that you ever have to do if you're feeling really cold, so you're getting all this stuff and you're like, okay, I know I'm really confused, I'm making it worse, I don't know what to trust. Just wait. It's going to clear on its own, but don't get in there and try to figure it out more, because that just makes it worse. That just adds more thought to the thought system, and thought is the problem to begin with, so just back up and wait and know clarity is going to come. It's underneath all of that. Big idea number 6 is just more of an observation than anything else, and everyone I've ever talked to has had this experience of, sometimes choices and decisions kind of feel like they make themselves. It's almost like you're not really making a choice in the matter, like things about, like who you love. Like, do you feed your dog? Of course you feed your dog. You just go feed your dog. Like, there's no question in that, and who your friends are. And, sometimes you just find you fall into things in life. And that's really cool. And the reason I think it's important to just point that out sometimes is just to see again that there is something bigger that kind of lives us, and that clarity that's coming through us, it's not a mental choice of those things. You don't decide who you're going to like and who you want to hang out with so much like a decision. It just happens. And so it's really clear evidence, I think, that there is something much bigger that's always kind of guiding us, pushing us in some direction. Now, obviously, not all decisions are as easy as the decision to, are you going to feed your dog, which isn't really a decision at all. It's just what you do in life. And that's okay. So it's not always going to be that clear and wonderful and easy, and that's fine. Certainly, we get into situations as human beings where it kind of feels more like we need to think our way through things and we need to make a decision. And, that's part of life. But it's really nice to just kind of get a feel for that spectrum. So sometimes things will just kind of be, I don't know, something's just pushing me this way, and you just let it push you because there's so much that is like that. And other times it's like, no, I need to think of something here, but that's fine too. Just sort of knowing like, okay, this is one of those where this is like the human thought driven part of me making this decision because that's just the best I have in this moment. So you kind of just make the decision with your head, but knowing that you're doing that. And there's something about that helps. It's like, okay, I know it's almost a shot in the dark. I'm just, picking the thing that looks best to me. But that's okay. That's all you can do is do the best you can do in that moment, and know that not all decisions are going to be like that. Sometimes it's kind of made for you and it's nice and easy. Big idea number 7. This is kind of a controversial one, so I don't want to say too much about it, but I just want to throw it out there. Well, maybe I should say a lot about it, but this is a tough one for me to get to, is that a lot of times the things that we think are limitations, like the things that we think are really putting all this pressure on us, like timelines and external, deadlines and what other people think and all of this other stuff out in the world, it can really feel like they're clamping down on our ability to just relax and let clarity show up. Because, you can relax and let clarity show up and write your book for you, for example, as much as you want. But when you have a publisher that says, I need a draft by next Tuesday, well, there's a little bit of a limitation there, And so it's very easy sometimes to take these time pressures and this external stuff and get really attached to it. And really, like, as soon as we start focusing on all that stuff, it's like the clamps just get tighter and tighter around you, and there's more, you feel that feeling again, if there's more in your mind, like you feel weighted down a little bit and you don't feel like that clear vessel for wisdom to just sort of easily pass through. And so the thing is, a lot of those, yes, somebody's telling you they need an answer or you have to make a decision by this date or whatever. That's fine. It is what it is. But just to kind of know that many, many times we're so focused on that and we're so attached to that we're letting it sort of limit us. That can be there and you can still be kind of free in the moment right now, knowing that next Tuesday is going to come. So, but we don't, because we're thinking about next Tuesday when it's this Monday, so we let it affect us so much. That's A. B is that so often, those are just someone else's thoughts. And they may be fleeting thoughts. They may not be gospel truth that absolutely have to be, abided by. And so there's a lot more freedom there. I'll just say, like, I don't want to tell anybody, oh, well, tell your boss, too bad, he's getting his answer in 2 weeks instead of in 1 week. You'll figure that out. Use your own common sense. But just know it's so easy to look at things like that and feel like they're just completely set in stone, and they're much, much more fluid than it seems like they are. Many times when I talk with people who talk about, oh, but I have to make this decision by this time, and I don't have the freedom to wait for clarity and all of this. When we really look at it, the timeline or whatever the deadline is completely self-imposed. No one else is even, asking them, but it just turns out that they want to know by the end of the year, or they kind of come up with some story around it. So it's a good chance, some of the things we think like that are kind of in that camp. So just look out for that yourself. Big idea number 8 is really kind of a biggie in this because it sounds so simple, but it's, is there really even a wrong choice, or can you really even make a wrong decision anyway? If you think about it, if we truly went through life feeling as if, like the old adage that, it's all just feedback, not failure, if we really truly lived by that and just went through life doing the best we could, knowing that it's okay because there's no such thing as failure anyway. You're always going to get another chance. I mean, think about how different the world would be. Like how many more risks people would take, how much more laid back and creative, because we'd be laid back, we would be about things. And that's, I don't know, maybe that'll happen sometime down the road in the universe. But right now, it's not really the case. Right now, most people really have this idea that there is a wrong choice. So, or that you can mess up, you can make the wrong move. And so I just have you examine that for yourself. Just look at that idea. Like if we are clarity and we are this wellspring of new thought, new idea, new possibility, if that truly is our nature, as I believe it is, and the slate is always clearing, then, yeah, we can make a choice that we might later look back on and say, oh, I wish I hadn't chosen that way. I wish I had done something different. But if the slate's always cleared and you're always getting new thought, you kind of always just start over. You really can. We have so much more resilience and ability to bounce back and just start fresh than we think we do. And that's only because our mind is so used to looking at the past and the future rather than just being here in the present moment. And so the more we're just in the moment, there's so many opportunities to just make another choice, go a different direction, take another path. They're infinite. Every moment of your life is a new blank place, where you can make a different choice from that place. But if we're not carrying all of that thought about the past and, oh, now I did this and I have to stick with that, if we're not carrying all that with us, we experience that freedom a little more. And we really do just come into the new day just like a kid does, where they just wake up fresh and they say, what do I want to do today? Like, my toddlers don't wake up and say, well, I think I'm going to color today because I painted yesterday. Like, it's irrelevant. They just do what they want to do in the moment. And we can do that to a large extent. Like, maybe not exactly the way they can, but much, much more than we do in general. So just kind of keeping an eye on that. There really is no wrong choice. And also, again, like almost everyone I've ever spoken with, including myself, can look back on things and say, oh, I probably, I wish I would have made a different choice here, or if I had to do over or whatever. But also in the wrong turns we make, we can almost always see how something good came out of that too, And so it's not about like putting blinders on and only trying to focus on the positive piece of it. Like we're not talking about being in denial about anything. You did what you did, but I think there is good in everything, and even when you can't see it, it still may be there. So it's not always revealed to you right away. But so often people spend years in the wrong relationship or the wrong career, and it's only after they've been out of it for quite a while that they can see many, many ways why that was exactly perfect or led them to what they were in, or, whatever it is. So kind of knowing too that maybe there is some kind of intelligence behind things, and because we're just little human beings, we can't always see it. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't, but even if you can, it doesn't mean it's not there and that you made a wrong choice. Big idea number 9 is really kind of related to that and the choice. And again, like I was saying, you always have another chance to choose again. So I heard this metaphor once that I really like about, it's kind of more about thought, about imagine that like the thoughts that we choose and we really get into. And it was like, imagine that you are just on your front porch or looking out your front window and you see all these buses going by, as is the case for a lot of people. If you live in a city, you see all these buses going by, and that's kind of like our thoughts. We have all these thoughts going by, and we get to choose. Like, we need to think a little bit and choose, like, which bus we want to get on. Because you could just see a bus and be like, ooh, bus, and jump on the bus. But if the bus is not going where you want to go, then you don't really want to get on that bus. So it's, the metaphor was about our thinking. Like, just because stuff pops through our head and flows through our river or whatever however you want to describe it, doesn't mean we have to get on board with everyone. We can let some of that pass and wait until something feels like truth to us before we sort of jump on it. And we all get all kinds of garbage that floats through our head that really is best left just letting it pass. Just like the wrong buses go by our street all the time. You just want to let them go. And it reminds me of this in a way about always having a chance to choose again, because the way I used to see something like that was like, well, I could kind of see that. Like, all right, I see that. I don't have to jump on every bus or entertain every thought, respect every thought. But what I would do is very often, as all humans, I would respect the wrong thought or a thought that took me in the wrong direction, made me feel bad. And then as soon as I noticed that, I would kind of beat myself up. So it was the equivalent of like getting off the wrong bus and then sitting on the curb and being out in the middle of nowhere and being like, what did I do? I got on the wrong bus again, and spending like an hour on the curb, being upset with what you did. And now it looks different to me. So we could do that with choices too. You might make the wrong choice and you might spend an hour on the curb beating yourself up, or a day or a month on the curb. And certainly that happens. But there's another option, another way of kind of seeing it. And so now the way it looks, because I kind of know that, we have this clarity within us that our fundamental nature is good and that we're being kind of brought back to that all the time, that like, if you get on the wrong bus, it's not like you have to go sit on the curb and punish yourself for an hour. You kind of are on the wrong bus, and then as soon as you realize that, you can be right back at the bus station to where you have all these options. And that is like sort of just a perspective and a choice we make. The punishment part is not needed. And the big delay between, realizing you made a wrong choice and then choosing, having the courage and building up the stamina to choose again, like that's all just sort of human drama that we add to the system. And it's innocent. Like we think that's sort of how it works. But truly, because our slate's clearing and every moment is a brand new, fresh moment of life, you can get on the worst bus for you and be way out of town and almost instantly be kind of transported in some crazy spiritual magical way back to the bus station, where it's like, okay, I'm in this moment right now in the bus station, and right now I have all these buses to choose from. Which one am I going to choose? And I don't know, applying that to kind of making decisions like this, I just thought was so nice. It's not like you always do it. Like, I mean, I still beat myself up for things at times, but just to know, like, oh, well, maybe that's an option too. Maybe I'll just go back to the bus station. I don't need to sit out here in the wilderness and be lost forever. So the last big idea here is kind of just about following the energy, and this is again just a way to sort of wrap it up. Is knowing that there is something I know within each of us that does sort of point us in a direction. I don't even want to say the right direction. That's like a thought, I don't even know what that is, but that points us towards something. And you'll know it by how it feels, again, like warm or colder. When you're really cold, that means you have a lot on your mind, you're all confused. You're just kind of looking at a brick wall saying, this is all I can see, what's the problem, but you just need to back up a little bit and you'll see a broader picture. When you're feeling good, you're fine. Like there is this momentum, that feeds your dog, loves your boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, like just that has that stuff happen. And every once in a while in life, we get freaked out a little bit because we lose sight of that momentum and we get really concerned with what's in our heads. But knowing that what's in our heads is just a storm, it's passing, and as soon as we let it go, there will be a momentum there that will push us through it. And it's so important because so many people, myself included for a long time, just have this sense like we have to make everything happen. It is up to us. We are in charge of our life. And it's a very empowering thought in one way, but then it's also this empowering thought that can kind of lead you into this life of like hamster wheel, frantic, I have to make it happen. Like there's nothing that has our back. And it's both. We have choice. Like we are so blessed that we get to make things happen. and make all these choices in our lives. And at the same time, there is something that has our back and that will point us in directions and guide us and help us out and restore our clarity when it's gone. And so I think it's, just so nice to reside in that space where you're smart and you're resourceful and you can do whatever you want, and it's not all up to you. You don't always have to do what you want. And especially when you're confused, clarity will come, because it always does at some point. So I hope this has been helpful, especially if you're in a lot of confusion yourself, as we all are, or for the next time you are. Hopefully you'll think back to some of these ideas and continue to watch videos like this and just get a bigger sense of ease around that, and knowing that you're not too far gone. No matter how confused or stuck you feel, it's absolutely a temporary state. Thank you.